friends. So we were discussing about the current affair news analysis for the month of September. So we see that how there was changes made by policymakers in order to introduce the methanol economy. And what is methanol economy? It is a green economy in which there is a composition of methanol which percentage is added to the petroleum which suffice the better production of energy and reduction of the energy targets. Now, methanol is firstly indigenously developed in India and based in the methanol production plant, that is indigenously designed high ash coal plant gasification of methanol by BHEL R&D Center, Hyderabad. Remember this point, that is the first of its kind methanol plant by BHEL Hyderabad. And now methanol and its features, let us look into it. That methanol is a distinct advantage of polygeneration. Remember this polygeneration fluid, and it is a resource that comes synthesizing CO and H2. So methanol is generated by carbon monoxide and H2 synthesized together to form a synthesized petroleum that is energy combustible, energy efficient, productivity held, and that leads to greener emission target. And it also provides the DME, that is dimethyl ether, that closely resembles about the methanol. Methanol used to produce other chemicals that derive from the methanol blended with the petroleum. Methanol, also known as methyl alcohol, came from the woods, charcoal and other CO2 based gases. Methanol also derived from the laboratories via chemical testing that is already biodegradable. Now, the next part of methanol economy goes for the cleaner fuel, that is by catalysis under a catalytic converter. What is catalysis? A process of using a catalytic converter by high temperature, high pressure exothermic reaction. And methanol also gives coal gasification process followed by catalytic conversion and coal gasification through synthesis. So hydrogen, carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide are produced in the process. Now, methanol economy, how far it impacts over the economy and leading to reduction of GHG gases, that is a part. So energy security is provided through methanol economy under methanol based production, and that is a part of methanol generation target. Further, it leads to transport sector, that roads, railways and marine sectors are also influenced. Then energy sector in terms of comparison of DG sets, boiler, processor, heating, tractors and commercial vehicles are also impacted through methanol impacted petroleum, and it is blended with the retail cooking. So replacing LPG cylinder partly, kerosene and wood charcoal, it also leads for the methanol based system. Further, a gaseous substance of DME can hold with the LPG and can be excellent substitute for the diesel and large buses, trucks, and reducing import dependency. Further, methanol and DME are also substantially cheaper than the petrol and diesel in India, can take part in the reduction of its fuel bills by 30% by 2030. So this again goes for a very important part of oil efficient economy for India, and thus it aims for 10% of crude oil imports reduction by 2030 as aimed by Niti Aayog. Remember it for your prelims and mains point of view, that how methanol alone manufactured 20 metric tons of methanol annually, which can be produced at rupees 90 a liter. Such a cheap rate for methanol, that is only rupees 19. It can be used to buy a methanol, then Indian high ash coal, stranded gas and biomass. Then methanol economy research program has also been incurred by Ministry of Science and Technology, which aims for production of methanol including Indian coal, carbon dioxide and other gases that are forms of the methanol economy. Further, Bureau of Indian Standards has notified 20% of DME blending with LPG, that is liquefied petroleum gas के साथ 20% मिथानोल की ब्लेंडिंग की जा सकती है for M15, M85. and M100 blended that are part of Ministry of Roads, Transport and Highways. Now testing standards for M15 has been blended with the Indian Oil Corporation Limited and Automotive Research Association of India and Society for Indian Automobile Standard Manufacturers. So we see that how methanol is only efficient fuel that is used to curtail the LPG, that is reducing petrol emission, reducing diesel products and also helps to greener and better economy for India. Again, railway is working towards blending methanol in the range of 20% to the direct fuel that is injected in the locomotive. So diesel locomotive vehicle, in the ignition temperature they use certain diesel, and diesel vehicle by using methanol of 20% mixture it can reduce the fuel injection. In 2018, Assam Petrochemical launches Asia's first canister based methanol cooking fuel program. Now what is possibly steps that are taken for the animal extinction? So in terms of environment and ecology, various steps are taken in order to reduce the animals which are being extended, vulnerable, threatened and under mass depletion. So we see that UN IUCN list was there, then there was Aichi targets and there are Ramsar conventions also. So there are plants and species which are possibly extinct in the latest edition of International Union for Conservation of Nature, Red List of Threatened Species. Now we should have a look into it. The first one is the Malayan owl. Malayan owl is under threatened list. Then Deccan barb is second one. Third is Deolai minnow. These species of fishes under extinction, and Nilgiri maestus. Then we are having fire corals. These are under threatened. Then dwarf starfish is there. Then pink headed duck is again there, which can be threatened for the extinction. Then coconut crab is there, the Siberian crane is there and Bonny barb is there, which is a fish variety of big kind of marine animal. Then tetra-headed butterfly ray, which is again a threatened animal. Remember this all facts for your prelims as well as mains examinations. In prelims such can be asked that what are the species that are threatened and under extinction under IUCN Red List. Remember this fact, very important for your prelims and mains. Now what does mean by possibly extinct? What does mean by the possibly extinct species? The species which are under endangered situation and which are going to disappear in certain period of time, that are called as the under extinct species, and as marker to estimate the present population of species that are declined. So species marked to have been last assessed in the 1900 post, which their presence and updated to their population has not been found. Now the extinct post of 1500 species have been marked in terms of peafowl, cheetah, hairy nosed otter and banteng, above it found in today's Southeast Asia, and Sumatran and Javan rhino and the Ostreba belageri. These all species are under threatened and near to be extincted. Very important for your prelims point of view. Now what are the categories under International Union for Conservation of Nature? So that is extinct, threatened and least concerned. These are three big categories under which first is the extinct, which is going to be disappeared and which is not visible in present scenario. Then extinct under wild, so that is species that has been completely eradicated over the earth surface. ये पृथ्वी पे कहीं भी आपको देखने के लिए नहीं मिलेगा, that is extinct. Then extinct in the wild is known as the captivity cultivation for outside natural ranges. Then there is critically endangered species which is highly risk prone to be getting extincted and their species is getting deteriorated from the climate change. Next is the endangered species facing a very high risk of extinction in the wild, that is endangered species, and vulnerable species is again threatened by the man-animal conflict and risk of extinction. Then near threatened species is again closely qualified to get threatened to get extincted. Least concerned species is the population stand to face extinction of the near future. Data deficient species, that is abundant for the distribution to estimate risk extinction. Next part is key updates that are brought by IUCN to look into the species. Has 900 species variety of animals and that officially longs for the green status and stand for the species recovering and measuring on the impact. Species whose status changes, that is Komodo dragon. We see where we found this dragon in the areas of Australia and Africa. Then albacore tuna and yellowfin tuna, these fishes species are again under threatened. So they are moved from threatened to least concern. Now Yarkod and gecko was again removed from the least concern to endangered. Satara gecko was moved from the vulnerable to the critically endangered species. Yellow monitor was also moved from least concern to endangered. And IUCN 1948, it has headquarters at Gland, Switzerland. This fact for prelims point of view. The IUCN is the world's oldest global environment organization that has 1400 members, and both government and civil society organization are part of it. Every 4 years IUCN convenes IUCN World Conservation Congress to set up the global conservation agenda. So every year IUCN sets an agenda in order to protect various species of animals, birds, mammals and other creatures that are on the planet of Earth. And in order to protect, there is certain codes. So we see that there are extant code, we see that there is calculation of EOO species, that is species which are having a EOO criteria and having a range of assistance colonization. So that is to be protected for 20 to 30 years. Then next is probability extant. Probability extant is a code value which discontinued for the reason of ambiguity for the extinction spatial data. Third is the possibly extant, and there is a record for species in an area it having suitable habitat at appropriate altitude, thus beyond the limits is known as the likely recorded, and beyond geographical barriers becomes area represented by those species known for probable occurrence. Then possibly extinct is a species formerly known to occur in the area post 1500 AD. 14th century के लास्ट तक जो भी स्पीसीज अर्थ पे दिख रहे हैं दैट आर पॉसिबली एक्सटिंक्ट एंड दैट इज अगेन कैलकुलेटेड बाय EOO measures. Fifth is the extinct category, which is likely to disappear from Earth's surface from 1500 AD. 15वीं शताब्दी के बाद से जो स्पेसीज नहीं दिख रहे हैं दैट इज द एक्सटिंक्ट कैटेगरी and it is confirmed under the EOO calculation. Extinct ranges over the environment. Then last is the presence of uncertain. Record extinct, that is species presence in the area with having no certainty or at the environment, and verification at disappearance of certainty as the identification location is a certain record is presence of uncertain species. Now India's first conservation reserve for the dugong. So what is dugong? It is a sea cow जिसे जलगाय हम कहते हैं. So India is having a first conservation reserve of dugong in the Park Bay of Tamil Nadu, and at the habitat loss, entanglement, fishing nets, hunting for meat and oil, etc. So what is dugong? Dugong is a sea cow. There are only herbivore animal and mammals that are family of Dugongidae. Remember this family? Dugongidae. And that family of cow is making vulnerable in the IUCN list, and Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Act of 1972, वाइल्ड कानून 1972 का निर्धारित करता है कि डुगोंग जो है शेड्यूल फर्स्ट एनिमल है, यानी कि एनी पर्सन फाउंड गिल्टी इन द एक्सटिंक्ट स्पीसीज and attacking on the species can be jailed and convicted behind the bars at the cognizable offense. तो उसे एक संज्ञानयुक्त ऑफेंस के अंतर्गत जेल में बंद कर दिया जाएगा जो लोग डुगोंग पे अटैक करेंगे. Remember this fact for your prelims and mains point of view. So dugong is found in shallow water, mainly in the seagrass. Now we see in the map that where is the dugong is found. So in the Rameshwaram Pamban Bridge, these two areas made for the dugongs. So यहाँ पे dugong conservation reserve बनाया जा रहा है in the area of Pambam to Rameshwaram. Remember this fact for your prelims as well as mains point of view. Now next point is the UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. So why these are making news? UNESCO Biosphere Reserve covers 700 kilometers of area and having a data of stretched across Australia, Slovenia, Croatia, Hungary and Serbia, that is MGD, and reserve is the home of floodplains, forest, gravel, sand, river island, oxbows and meadows. It is also having continental Europe's highest density of breeding white-tailed eagle as well as the endangered species such as little tern, black stork, otters, beavers and sturgeons. So how much area? 700 kilometers of area is UNESCO Biosphere Reserve in this area of Europe. So Biosphere Reserve are areas of terrestrial and coastal ecosystem. So biosphere area कैसे क्षेत्र हैं? That are part of terrestrial and coastal ecosystem that are carrying distinct species, mammals and other creatures which are necessary for the food chains and environmental conservation. So that area is projected by United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization under UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, and it involves local communities. वहाँ के जो क्षेत्रीय नागरिक हैं उनको मोटिवेट किया जाता है कि उस क्षेत्र को बचाएं and the stakeholders in the planning. Now the Sendai framework and its outlines. The Sendai framework acts for the disaster resilience mechanism and reduction of disaster prone situation. So Sendai जापान का एक शहर है जहाँ पे 2005 में एक मीटिंग हुई थी. There was a meeting in Sendai, city of Japan, where we talked about how to mitigate the disaster resilience mechanism and how to create an infrastructure to mitigate the disaster scenario in the city of Japan. So that framework was adopted by entire world and that was called as the Sendai framework for action. Now there are certain points which you should remember for exam, that is reduce global disaster mortality, वैश्विक लेवल पे मृत्यु दर को कम करना, that is first target. Second is the reduce of number of affected people globally, and third is the reduction of direct economic loss in relationship of GDP. GDP का जो भी loss हो रहा है disaster के चलते उसको भी mitigate करना, that is part of Sendai target. Fourth is the reduction of disaster damage to critical infrastructure and disruption basis services. Remember this four fact for your prelims point of view. So UPSC can ask such question, then how is the framework of disaster resilience network has been successful so far by giving the option A, B, C, D. So you need to just focus on the option and eradicate it in order to make your answer correct. So remember this fact. Now next point is increase the number of countries with a national and local disaster risk reduction strategies. Fifth is the substantially enhance international cooperation developing economies, and last is the increasing the availability of accessing multi-hazard warning system. So it not only aims to mitigate an early warning system, but it also aims to cater the multi-hazard system which are arising out of various ocean hazards, tsunami, cyclones, earthquake and other kind of disasters. So remember this is very important for your exams. Next is People will migrate due to slow onset climate change. What are the impact of climate change that are discussed here? Remember this fact. So first is the water scarcity. जब भी पर्यावरण परिवर्तन होता है हम देखते हैं बहुत सारे जगह ड्रॉट इमर्ज होती है एंड ड्यू टू इमर्जिंग ड्रॉट सिचुएशन देयर इज क्राइसिस ऑफ वाटर. So in Delhi, in the various areas of Haryana, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh and Punjab, we see that there is scarcity of water. Second part is heat stress, that is rising of heat storms and loo. In India, we see that there is more than 34 years of record has been broken down due to sudden rise of heat and temperature. So that are all impact of greenhouse gases and climate changes. And lower crop productivity, again due to climate change, the soil quality degrades, water quality degrades, irrigation goes down and low crop productivity results. Then suicide of farmers again rises. These all are interlinked topics and interconnected for your answer writing scenario. Again, sea level rises and storm surges due to climate change. There are high tide and low tide situations. Then next is the extreme events for the climate change that leads to rise of volcanic eruptions, heating islands and floodings. These are extreme events which we see recently. Then land loss, degradation of land loss and landslides are there. So people in the Middle East and small island developing states are also facing challenges due to climate change and such issues. Remember these all for your examination. What are the 6 steps in order to cater and reform the agriculture produce support? In order to cater the climate change measures, there are various strategies taken by farmers as well as the agriculturalists. So there are 6 steps in which the problems are being catered. The first goes for estimation of support already provided. So that means whenever a support mechanism is provided by state government or any kind of agency, that needs to be estimated firstly in terms of economic and funding mechanism. Then second point is identifying and estimating the impact of the support provided. Whatever the support has been provided is to be impacted and how far the impact is the identification of that impact. Third is the design and approach for repurposing agriculture product support. How to redesign and recreate that agri product, such as there is a field of wheat and rice and that is declining the productivity, then the government needs to look into it to support the soil quality, irrigation measures and other challenges that are emerging in those sectors. Third point is estimation of future impact of the repurposing strategy. So what is the repurposing strategy that are getting impacted in the farmers agriculture processes, and in the future whichever being impacted that are needed to be catered through the various mechanism. Then reviewing and refining the repurposing strategy prior implementation. Before implementation of any strategy, it should be reviewed and retackled. Then last is the monitoring and outcomes strategy for agriculture producer support.